Last night was the first night of the Republican National Convention, and right off the bat, it was infinitely better than the DNC, at least in terms of production quality. It actually felt kind of normal. And the Republicans did have some cringy moments, but the Democrats had way more cringy moments. And for the most part, we saw Republicans get up, speak in an open room, and present their ideas to the public. But the big news right now that the right is cheering about: first night of GOP convention delivers nearly 6 times more views than start of Democrats event on C-SPAN Livestream. That's right. The RNC pulled in 6 times the viewers on C-SPAN. But this isn't the full picture. According to Variety, Democrats actually got better ratings on their first night. Now, this could be explained in many ways. It could just be the overnight ratings for the RNC are a little low and they're skewing Democrat. It could actually be nobody likes the Republicans and people are all watching the Democrats. But I think there's a better way to explain this. I think Democrats are less likely to watch the RNC and Republicans are more likely to watch the DNC. And this goes along with the common saying that Democrats think Republicans are evil, Republicans think Democrats are misguided. Or another idea that we're seeing, that people on the left don't follow conservatives, but people on the right follow both conservatives and liberals. There's actually a chart that I show relatively often showing conservatives get about a third of their news from liberal sources. Moderates have an even mix, but liberals only get their news from liberal sources, which says to me the reason the DNC's viewership was higher is because Republicans were actually watching too. Now that may just be a bias, but I think this idea lends itself to the ongoing political state we see in this country. I think Donald Trump is the internet's politician. Online, you have people seeking out news, trying to better understand things, and they come across Donald Trump. When Trump posts a meme, people understand it. Trump supporters understand it. Why? Because they're online engaging with the internet community. So these inside jokes play well among Trump's base. But on the left, they're, for the most part, just believing, trusting mainstream media. And this results in high-profile leftists having no idea what's going on in this country and then being shocked by what they hear at the RNC. If the Democrats actually watched the RNC and actually paid attention to what was going on, they wouldn't be surprised by what Republicans are actually saying. So what do we get? Skewed, biased media and a left that isn't paying attention to what's going on. But as more and more people pay attention, more and more people will start watching both sides because they're interested in what both sides have to offer. I mean, Democrats and Republicans. And then ultimately, what do you see? Well, I'll tell you what I see. I see Democrats who are completely clueless. They'll insult Republicans as evil or whatever. But then I watch the riots, people's lives destroyed, people killed, people attacked. And for some reason, these high-profile leftists aren't paying attention. I mean, Bill Maher is an excellent example. He understands the threat to free speech, yet still has no idea what's going on. He's always about a month behind the curve from everybody else. If only people like Bill Maher actually looked into the news, watched the videos online to see what was actually happening. So let's do this. Let's break this down. Let's take a look at what's going on with the ratings, because I got to tell you, I think what we're actually seeing, and I can probably provide a good reason to believe this. I think the Democrats, these voters, aren't paying attention to what's going on. And they're wrapped up in their own bubble where they think they're right. But come November, they will get a shock to their system. Those of us who have been paying attention have pretty much said no to the Democratic Party. But let's start with this story. Take a look at what happened with the Republicans' ratings and how the Democrats fared and explain why this may be. Before we get started, make sure you head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's many ways you can give, but the best thing you could do, actually subscribe to my channel, because I'm pretty sure I just broke 1 million subs and I'm really excited about that. So thank you to everybody who has subscribed, or at the very least, very close to breaking 1 million subs as by the time you're watching this video. But if you really want to help out, just hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and share this video. But let's read the first story from The Hill. The first night of GOP convention delivers nearly 6 times more views than start of Democrats event on C-SPAN, they say. C-SPAN's live stream of the first night of the Republican National Convention has attracted nearly 440,000 views, marking a substantial increase over the start of the Democratic National Convention, which drew 76,000 views. The numbers for Monday night come ahead of traditional TV ratings from Nielsen Media Research, which will be released on Tuesday afternoon. So as of right now, I don't have the hard numbers. I just have the TV overnights. So this really does still seem like great news for Republicans. They say, Republican National Convention, night 1, down on DNC in early numbers. Now, these are just the early numbers, but they say the RNC night 1 drew around 4.9 million total viewers, a 14% drop from last Monday's DNC first night, which drew 5.7. Looking at the networks individually, ABC scored the largest total viewership, as it did for the DNC, drawing 1.8 million viewers. NBC was right behind with 1.7. As was the case with DNC last week, it appears the RNC is on course for much smaller numbers than previous edition from 4 years ago. For comparison, the first night of the 2016 RNC delivered 10.1 million viewers in the preliminary broadcast ratings, more than twice the tally from this time around. Equally bad news for both Democrats and Republicans. Everyone was saying, oh man, Democrat viewership was down so much from 2016. And it's down again for Republicans, too. But this isn't all bad news for Republicans. It shows a shift in what's happening in our politics. I think what we're seeing with the Democrats is the traditional establishment, TV establishment, dying out. And Donald Trump represents the internet. That's why memes basically drive Trump supporters. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's hilarious. But memes are relatively inside jokes. If you don't understand it, you're sitting there confused. And they often say the left can't meme. This is because the left gets their tribal politics from the television, and there are no real memes. But it is true, at least in my opinion, the left has been improving its memes recently. Nowhere near as good as the memes from the Trump base. I mean, the president himself is a master troll. But I think what we're seeing is that as the establishment kind of fades out, loses their power, the left is developing an online community. I'm seeing many left-wing progressive YouTubers starting to do really, really well relative to where they were a long time ago. Some of these channels that have been stagnant for years, all of a sudden seeing a major boost. Why? The establishment is being crushed. The Republicans were crushed out by Trump. The Democrats are about to be finished off by Trump. And this is good news for the left. Those that are online watching progressive channels, let the establishment power go. Donald Trump might get another 4 years, but at least you'll have a chance to get your ideas out there once people focus on getting their information online. I saw an interesting article from Robbie Suave who said, Big tech is not a big threat to conservative speech. The RNC just proved it. While cable news outlets cut away from the convention, social media platforms offered unrestricted access. Robbie's correct. Partly. I think big tech is a threat to conservative speech. They're curtailing many ideas and forcing conservatives to move to the left. That's what's happening. It is true that these big cable networks, even Fox News, were cutting away from RNC speeches. And many Trump supporters were upset about it, saying, I don't want to watch Hannity. I want to see what the RNC has to say. So if you go online, you will see unrestricted access. And it's no wonder then you see Joe Rogan as like the top podcast in the world. It's no wonder. I mean, I'm stoked on this. And I'm basically, as I'm recording this, on the verge of breaking 1 million subscribers. And this is true for many progressives as well. Individual choice is starting to take over. And the age of these big narrative controlling mainstream media corporations, they're dying out. Now, it's fair to say, in light of what Robbie is saying, there's still bad news for conservatives because these big tech companies favor the left. I mean, right now on Twitter, for instance, you have all of these leftists advocating for extreme violence with these riots going on. Why won't they shut that down? Meanwhile, they ban every single QAnon account. I'm not a fan of either, but the fact is there is a bias, and it results in something unfortunate for the left right now. I want to show you this post from Seth MacFarlane. Not the most important individual in politics, but he has 14 million followers. And he said, just caught up with the Republican convention. Jesus, those propaganda pieces were pretty chilling. Near future sci-fi couldn't do any better. Really, Seth? Have you bothered to Google search anything that they talked about with the chaos going on? No, he probably is just getting his news from mainstream media like the LA Times. RNC speakers paint California as a dangerous dystopia. Yeah, when you read mainstream media, you're probably like, this doesn't align with my view, because these journalists are in a bubble that is ever diminishing. It's getting smaller and smaller every year. A new study just showed us the bubble in the Beltway in D.C. is smaller than it was in 2016. Seth tweeted, "My grandfather was a Republican. We disagreed on a lot, but we both respected the truth and each other. This is not his party. There was no screamed rhetoric. Until the GOP finds itself again, I implore honorable conservatives to preserve the future by voting." Nah, I'm not seeing it, Seth. Not at all. I'm not a conservative. I'm actually going the other direction. I'm getting away from the Democrats. You know why? I'm paying attention and I'm watching these videos from around the country and my heart is being squeezed when I see these videos, not just in the sense that I am brought to deep emotions watching a man near tears because his family business was destroyed by lunatics, but it's being squeezed by the likes of you, these mindless leftist, liberal whatevers who aren't paying attention, but would tell others what to do. I don't blame Seth. It's not his job to be a journalist, but you need to actually start paying attention. I love how these leftists say if you aren't paying attention, if you're not mad, you're not paying attention, things like that. Silence is violence. Yeah, well, they're not wrong. They're paying attention to social media. Seth is not. So while there are problems with social media and these bubbles and all of that stuff, at least you can see the videos for yourself. The problem with the left, they're getting propaganda. And as collectivists, they just believe what their priests have to say. On the right, as individuals, we seek out information. We look at who is saying what, where's the source. You're more likely to find people challenging you. In fact, I get it all the time. People try to say that I'm objective and I'm more honest and all that stuff. I still get people in the comments saying, here's where you were wrong. And I often have to issue corrections because of it. Because even people who watch me expecting to see the truth often know more about many of these issues than I do. And that's true. And I accept it just the way it is. Now, I do my work in trying to source all the information properly to the best of my ability. But when it comes to issues like a better example is not necessarily that my opinions are wrong. Some people would disagree. But there are some instances where I'll talk about, say, firearms, for which I am not an expert. And people will respond and they'll say, hey, you were wrong about this. Here's the thing about guns you got wrong. I'll say, oh, wow, I didn't know that. So there's a more back and forth. It's always been that way online. For someone like Seth, with 14 million followers, he's just reading the news. He doesn't know. Take a look at this video. James Woods tweets, his parents started a business in their garage 40 years ago. Democrats supported Black Lives Matter and Antifa terrorists burn it to the ground for no reason. This dude is fighting back tears. This video broke my heart, man. What did this guy? He said, I didn't do anything to anybody. What did I do to deserve this? Why do bad things, this is me now. That was his line. But why do bad things have to happen to good people? Because sometimes there are bad people. Because bad people hurt good people. Because this guy, his family started a business. And one day he wakes up to find it was all taken from him by extremists who don't care about any of us. And you get someone like Seth just reading, mainstream news and watching the TV. He has no idea what these people are going through. And he's like, join the riots, everybody. Now, not literally, but he's like, I want every honorable conservative to please consider voting for the Democrats. I got bad news for you. Take a look at this tweet from Walid Shahid. He is the very senior Democratic strategist, Spox, for Justice Democrats. He tweeted, an interesting dynamic in the latest CBS poll. Only 5% of Republicans say they're voting for Joe Biden. Right now, that's lower than the 8% of Republicans who voted for Obama in 2008, 6% of Republicans who voted for Obama in 2012, and 7% of Republicans who voted for Hillary Clinton. While Seth MacFarlane, and I'm sorry to drag him. I mean, he's got 14 million followers. He's a really good example of many of these liberals who have no idea what's happening around them. While they're saying we call on conservatives to vote Democrat, Republicans are less likely now to vote for the Democrat than they were with Hillary Clinton. And that to me is surprising. Now, there's many reasons to explain why this might be. It could be that since 2016, many of those Republicans who voted for Hillary left. And if 7% left, then we're actually seeing a larger number of conservatives who would vote for Hillary. I can't speculate as to what that is. All I can do is tell you is that over the past several elections, there have been more Republicans voting Democrat than today. It's lower. And I think it's fair to say you are more likely to see former Democrats vote for Trump than the inverse. Walk away is a real phenomenon. You can't tell me it's not true when we see rallies with Brandon Strzok of the Walk Away campaign, but you don't see it in the inverse. Where are the big never Trumper rallies? Oh, we see the swamp monsters, former Republican congressional candidates and politicians saying they're going to vote for Biden. Those are the swamp monsters. You think I care about those people? I don't like any of the Republicans now, except for a small handful. I don't like Republicans. I don't like Democrats. And that's how it's been for a lot of Trump voters. Now, of course, tons of Republicans and conservatives love Trump, but Trump was able to capture independent voters, and it took long enough, but he got me, and it's partly due to the insanity I've seen going on nonstop. Insanity like this. Chris Cuomo said Monday that it's not always necessary to fact check Democratic politicians because they're not lying the way Trump does. Interesting. Why fact check Democrats when they're not lying the way Trump does? From the Daily Caller. That's right. Mainstream media ran a fact check on the RNC live, cutting away, interrupting, and actually lying. Because that's what they do. It used to be the mainstream media controlled what you thought. They don't do that anymore. I mean, they do, but now we have social media. There is no one financing my operation. And I love how people try to make that claim. Sorry, never going to happen. They like to claim Tim Pool is secretly funded by this, by that. Nope, just not true. Never true. Never been true. I have started this on my own. I have built this from the ground up. And through people choosing to watch my content, I've been able to succeed. These big media companies, I've worked for them. You know what they do? If you don't play ball, they don't put you on TV. If you don't play ball, they don't give you the platform. They have the platform. If you want to stand on the stage, you got to play by the rules. And when I said, I am not going to lie, they said, well, then go have fun sitting in the corner because you're under contract. And I said, okay. It's called golden handcuffs. And when I tried severing my contract. When my contract ended, I was gone. But people like Cuomo, this is the dirty game they play to manipulate politics, to tell you what you should think. And I'll give you the perfect example. Donald Trump tweeted this, and you probably heard the story, but it's important context for what I'm getting into. Did Democrats omit under God from the Pledge of Allegiance? Yes, twice. And Donald Trump tweeted, the Democrats omitted under God from the Pledge of Allegiance. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a mistake. They actually did. So Snopes runs a fact check. Mostly false? What do you mean mostly false? Trump said they did. And then they say, what's true? The phrase under God was omitted from at least 2 recitations of the Pledge of Allegiance at individual caucus meetings during the DNC in 2020. Is this the fact checking they're talking about? Why don't they fact check the DNC in real time? Why don't they at least set up a fact check in real time? Here's what's funny. You mean to tell me that Chris Cuomo says Democrats don't lie like Trump does, so we didn't even bother testing, setting up, preparing for a fact check? Think about it. In advance of the DNC and the RNC, they said, we will not fact check Democrats. We will fact check Republicans. So what happens then when Democrats do lie? And they did several times. There was no one there to fact check them. At the very least, CNN could have said, we have set up a live fact checking for the DNC, though we don't think it will be nearly as bad as the RNC. We are going to fact check in real time and do what we can. They didn't even bother doing that. Even if the Democrats lied 10 times and Trump lied 100, shouldn't we still call out the Democrats' lies? The reality is the media and the Democrats lie all the time. Sometimes Trump is wrong. Sometimes Trump is very wrong, but to insinuate that he's lying would mean you know his intent. Now, I certainly think Trump lies. I do. Come on, they all do. They're all politicians. But I think Trump is all right, and I think Trump is actually way more honest than they are. If you think Trump's not lying at least some of the time, I got a bridge to sell you. No, the reality is they're all going to try and play PR and lie. But Trump talks about things, and then he does them. Does he always win? No. He likes to say he does, but he doesn't always. But at least I know when he says something, I believe it. Because I think the guy just kind of blurts things out. But here's what we hear from the RNC. Here's what we hear from Republicans. California is a dangerous dystopia. Vacancies, inventory in the real estate market in San Francisco is skyrocketing. It's going up for every market in California, or for many of the markets in California. I can't say every, just several of the major cities. People are leaving. There's a joke in California. There's a joke in Los Angeles. It's welcome to Los Angeles. When you leave, take someone with you. Because there's too many people, and people often go there expecting to find some dream, and then they leave. California has very serious problems. Now, listen, a dangerous dystopia. Republicans are going to highlight the worst things that are happening because they need to be dealt with. The mainstream media ignores all of these things. Case in point, this man who was crying in front of his life, which was completely destroyed. But what else does the media tell us? What other lies do they push? Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci both said that we can safely vote in person. Then we should be done here, right? But the media won't shut up. Without evidence, unfounded claims. Mail-in voting is safe. We need to protect ourselves from COVID. Let me tell you what's really going on. From Politico, as Dems push mail-in voting, Black and Latino voters wary. New research shows why 2/3 of both groups prefer to vote in person and why Democrats aren't pushing everyone to vote by mail. Interesting. This was reported a long time ago. We know it's true. Okay, the people who are likely to be disenfranchised with mail-in voting are minorities. They're first-time voters. They're young voters. But for some reason, even though we can vote in person, the Democrats keep saying we have to, it's unsafe, blah, blah, blah. We get stories like this. The big challenge, I would say, is this. I go to outlets like Politico, and I trust what they're saying is true. To be fair, Politico reports this, so did the Washington Post and several other outlets, which is why I believe it's more likely to be true than not. But it could all be a lie. I don't know why they would lie unless they wanted to help Donald Trump. But this is the big problem. You look at the Democrats, they're on TV, and there it is. To wrap this all back together, the DNC got more television viewership ratings than the RNC did. That's what we're seeing right now. I think it's fair to say when the total numbers come in, probably around the time you're already watching this video, the Republicans will have done better. But what we really need to focus on is not the TV ratings. It's the digital ratings. Republicans did get 6 times the viewership of the Democrats, and that means Democrats aren't paying attention. And there it is. So how do you make them pay attention? Well, it's really difficult because Chris Cuomo says Trump's lying all the time. They won't tell you about the riots. They'll say peaceful protesters. That's what the Democrats did at the DNC over and over and over again. If the Democrats aren't watching online, then I think we have the best possible evidence as to why someone like Seth MacFarlane or Bill Maher are so completely out of touch. What happened to those union Democrats? I think they're voting for Trump, man. I remember those videos. You maybe saw them in Philadelphia, when a bunch of guys, probably looked like they were middle-aged to early 30s, showed up to protect the Christopher Columbus statue. These guys aren't Republicans, dude. Philly is overwhelmingly Democrat. You want to try and convince me that these Union Democrat guys, they're all of a sudden going to be like, well, we don't like Trump. They're tearing down our statues. They're destroying our homes and businesses. They're marching around screaming in our faces, calling us all of the worst names in the book. And you think those people are going to be principled conservatives that vote for Joe Biden? I don't buy it. I absolutely don't buy it. Hey, the polls all show Biden's winning, but I'll tell you what. It's because, in my opinion, these people do not pay attention. We're seeing a shift. Donald Trump is the candidate for the internet era. Joe Biden is old school in so many ways. And these journalists and these news outlets are doing everything in an old school way, and they can't properly track what's really going on. But you mean to tell me, with videos like this, Black Lives Matter mob forces DC restaurant patrons to raise fist in Black Power salute, and those that don't get harassed, berated, and screamed at, insulted? You mean to tell me that all of this stuff going on, and people are going to vote for Joe Biden? Conservatives are? No, they're not. I think one of the reasons conservatives are more likely to be online and paying attention is because the mainstream media doesn't serve them, isn't telling them what's really happening. And so when they see this narrative, they say, I don't know if I believe that. I'm going to go online and look. Last time I was on Rogan, I said that I think conservatives are less likely to be online, and thus they're getting a lot of their information from the likes of Fox News and through memes. I thought that because Democrats were hyper online, they were being radicalized very quickly. Someone said afterwards I was way wrong about that. And I think I was. I don't necessarily know who's online more or who isn't. But I think what we can see is trust in mainstream media plays a role in this. Conservatives have more access to the internet. They use their phones. They're sharing memes. And they're seeking ways to share ideas outside of the mainstream. And this is where someone like me comes in. Lifelong liberal, leaning left. All of a sudden, I'm voting Trump. Why? Because I do this for a living. I research this stuff. I'm independent. I have no boss. There's no one around me influencing me for the most part. I have friends that I work with and I have some staff. But for the most part, I do all of my information sourcing and I fact check all of these things. In these newsrooms, when I worked at these other places, they would just hear what their friends were saying, typically from a meme or some other mainstream source. They wouldn't search outside their bubble. I think what we're seeing right now, liberals who go online to figure out why was their building burned down, open up a whole new world of what's going on. People who actually watch a Donald Trump speech say, hey, that's not what the media said. I think it only takes someone to, watch Trump speak one time, to give a press conference one time, the full speech, to realize Trump's actually pretty good. I used to say he's bad, he's not that bad. Now I think he's pretty good. I do. Pretty good. I looked at his agenda. My opinion shifted greatly. But more importantly, I'm going to give Trump credit for one thing. When he was giving his press conference at the RNC, he said, I'm not going to say this bad word about someone. And I was like, thank you. I know a lot of people think it's silly, but it does play a role. It does play a role. But most importantly was his agenda list. I think it's good. I really do. I think any rational person would agree. But if you only watch the mainstream news, they'll tell you Trump's lying nonstop. You show them the truth online, alternate sources, facts. I mean, alternate sources in the sense like, don't just watch CNN. They're lying to you. Remember when, who was it, Shudo or Cuomo said, you can't read the WikiLeaks emails? It would be illegal. That's what they're trying to do. They're saying, don't go. No. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop right here and tell you this. The only thing you need to know, I want you to do your own research. I don't want you to just believe everything I say. I don't want you to be dependent. I want you to be free. I want you to be responsible, and I want you to be a strong individual. That's the difference between the two factions, and it's reshaping the parties. Those who blindly follow saying, tell me what to do, and those who say, I'm going to find out on my own. And that's why we're seeing politically homeless individuals. We're seeing liberals voting for Trump, moderates voting for Trump. And I think that's why people like Seth MacFarlane, Bill Maher, and these other high-profile leftists have no idea what's going on. They don't care. They never cared. And they're just hearing meme ideas, Occupy Democrats and things like that. It's skewing their perception. So anyway, here's the main point of this whole rant. When I saw that Republicans had more digital viewership, I said, that fits into my hypothesis exactly as I expected it. That conservatives are active online seeking out information. And when I saw that Democrats had higher television viewership, I said, that makes sense too. They're mindlessly just following the herd, whatever the TV says. Makes sense, doesn't it? We'll see how things play out come November, but Trump's got good news coming up. So I've got more information on Trump's polls and things like this coming up at 6 p.m. So check it out over at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.